Hello there, Sama here. Just wanted to let you know before we start this episode that I will be hosting a retreat online end of the year between 26th of December to 30th of December. For those of you who would like to take a deep dive into letting go old patterns before the new year starts. Also, in January, we have a mixed group coming up. So after the success with the men's group, I'm now organizing a group for both men and women. So take a look at both of these events on the website bitcoin-consciousness.com. Let's get into the conversation. I'm here today with Faisal, who approached me some months ago, and we've been working together through some different courses and things. Welcome, Faisal.
Thank you, Sama. I'm very excited to be on your show.
Cool. Yes. So I decided to invite you because you've had an interesting journey. Could you start with telling us about like your background and what happened like before we met?
Yes, sure. I would say, let's see, I come from a background of a rational, scientific-minded person. Engineering, nuclear science has been the area of my focus and dedication. So I've been very, let's say, objective in my worldview, and certain things do transpire in one's life where your view of the world do change. And as a consequence to that, I came across certain spiritual teachers, and of course, through my Christian upbringing, going circle back into the Bible, and picked up a certain theme, at least from all these teachings, that basically is just pointing towards the inner kingdom, that inner truth within us, sort of a know thyself. And that sort of got me into a spiritual awakening. I became more and more interested in truth rather than correctness. And I started reading a lot of books and listening to different teachers, investigating different religions to sort of understand what has humanity tried to teach each other. Like those books, those writings are basically humanity trying to put the record to teach itself for its future generation. So I find very a lot of interest in reading past work that was done, and it all pointed towards, as I mentioned, this inner truth. And I think fast forward, I got pulled into Twitter. Without going through my story of becoming a Bitcoiner, but I got pulled into Twitter and was looking into people who were kind of posting articles, work that is related to spirituality. And that's where I came across your work. And as I started reading your articles that you've published and some of the content that you release on Twitter and on your website, I was immediately drawn into that work. I felt that sort of alignment and a resonation with the same sort of interest that I have. And reached out to you, and rest is history.
Yeah. And you have also shared some deeper spiritual experiences in your previous life, like in your earlier life. Are you willing to share some of those?
Yes, certainly. One of the most major, I've had few, let's say, instances that really shapes you instantly, like it reshapes you almost instantly. One of the biggest one was a near-death experience. roughly 5 years ago. And it's always challenging to put the words and describe what I went through. But in essence, there's been a barrier that was broken instantly, and the fear of death disappeared. I was overwhelmed by comfort, by an energy of unconditional love that sort of nourished my soul, cleansed it instantly. And as a consequence of that, it reshaped the way I saw the world. As I said, almost instantly, I still had the same eyes, I still had the same hands, I still had the same ears, but the way I started filtering these information became different, or the way I started seeing the external world was different. And that increased my intensity of digging deeper into myself, finding out truly who I am and what I am. Ever since then, my utmost priority is devotion to truth, seeking truth for whatever it costs.
All right. You started with momentum meditations, then you did the men's group, and at the moment you're doing the Exit Fiat course. Can you walk us through what has been happening during these months? Like what happened during momentum meditations, like where were you at the start, your situation, and how it changed along the way?
Yes, momentum meditations were the first thing we worked on together. And just to put it in perspective, it's a group of individuals coming together, meditating. And there is a sort of architecture toward that meditation that you, Sama, have developed. And it's been profound to me. And how I would say it is there's this concept, an attempt to turn our senses inward. To me, I found that very profound because I thought my senses were only supposed to be used to interact with the external world. And prior to doing momentum meditation, my attempt to do meditation on my own was as simple as focusing on the breath. And I had very limited knowledge of what meditation was and how to do it. So I found the momentum meditation had a very profound impact on me as we focused and aligned ourselves in these sessions by turning our senses inward throughout the different days that we did this meditation. Momentum has built up. The name of the meditation, momentum meditation. Momentum has built up. And what do I mean by momentum? There's a momentum towards me becoming more and more comfortable with myself, and momentum towards coming to know myself even more. It's sort of like an enthusiasm, a sort of energy that says, oh, wow, I can't wait for the next day to come and know myself even more and sit silently with myself and just witness everything the body that I have right now experiences, whether it's on a physical level, a mental level, or even on a spiritual soul energy level. We get to sit together and allow the experience to just unfold without having to do anything about it. I personally myself found truly great value in this meditation, as it's given me a chance to center myself. Again, probably everybody knows, a lot of your listeners know, there's a lot of noise in the external world, lots of noise. And even the greatest supercomputer can't filter it all out. So it seems like a futile attempt for me to try to, gain an ultimate understanding of the external world, because it's just infinite in its expressions. As a consequence to that, more and more of my desires have become towards knowing myself, and focusing on this individual soul that I have becomes more of a priority. to nourish the soul that I have. Sort of treat it very well because it's a gift. It's a gift given to me. And that has allowed me to become more myself when I'm interacting with the outside world. I've become more, let's say, intuitive, able to discern what actions need to be done, what sort of ventures I need to get myself into. I've become more composed.
I remember you said one time in the beginning stages that you tried to go inside, but it just felt dark, or you said empty, or that you were not sure that it was worth going there or something. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. The overall feeling that I got from attempting to go inside was a sort of a numbness and an emptiness. I suppose I wasn't able to understand what sort of feelings I was going through. I never tried to understand it, never tried to inspect it, that it just became like a black box cloud. Just a cloud. You could feel it, that it's just numbness, but I cannot say more about it. I don't know much more about it. And there's no need for me to dive into it because I'm so numb. It's empty. Why go there? And that sort of pushback, I felt it for a long time, especially when I first joined those meditations.
And then it was like things started to open up, and then you had then a lot came for a few weeks, right?
Yeah, I wish I held my breath. The gates were open.
Because I remember that you were like, okay, it's too much going on at one point.
Yeah, at one point I did try to bail out. I said, oh, maybe I should take a break. But no, thankfully I kept going on. And as I said, it goes back to the wording of the meditation. It's called momentum meditation. The momentum builds up, the reinforcement that you are on the right path just keeps building up. At the beginning, I might have doubts, hesitation, and maybe presumed expectations that didn't turn out to be as what I expected. But that all gets filtered out as we go through these meditation sessions. There's a lot of emphasis on these meditations on giving ourselves the space to witness those emotions. And it goes from black box to a box, and then the box becomes more detailed by just focusing on it. And because I've repressed and had a lot of suppressed emotions, it was a flood when it first showed up. It was a flood.
And then the flood calmed down, and you found yourself in like a new kind of space, right? A new way of approaching life. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how would you describe what happened after the floods?
This part is very interesting because maybe my rational mind didn't know how to handle it. It thought I should only control it. But during those sessions, we get let's say, sort of a reinforcement that our truest self, whatever you want to call that light within us that gives us that aliveness to us, is able to handle it. And me personally, it really came as a surprise to me that just by witnessing these emotions, these thoughts, these images, these stories that I have within me, just by witnessing it, its control over me or its energy over me, it dissipates. And to me, it seems like now I'm getting more and more of an understanding around it, that it seems like it's just negative energy. There's a X amount of it that will deplete. And it's just a matter of allowing ourselves to let that energy deplete. It's not going to go over in a day or in a minute, but instead it's a process of just letting that negative energies filters program just deplete away. And it's really that awareness and me being able to just witness it surprisingly takes away that energy off it. It just depletes away.
Like
That's sort
it's
of what kind of gave me calmness. Yes.
so it's sort of the fear of it makes us not want to look at it, but actually in a community like the momentum meditations, we sort of build up a courage to actually look at it. And when we do that, it's not so bad as we thought, and it starts melting away. Could you say it that way?
Absolutely, and there's an element of humor in it. It's actually quite humorous if you see it that way, because as you said, yes, we're afraid of it, we're fearful, so we suppressed it, and thinking that that is how we handle it by putting it aside. But then you realize by looking at it and just witnessing what it is, there is no power in of itself. Whatever was behind that fear has no power over me. And I would say that's the humorous part, because I've been hiding away from it from the longest time. And then you realize, well, it actually doesn't have any power over you. That's why we give it that term, the negative energy. It's low energy. It doesn't have the power to sustain my aliveness, my radiance, my source of being. It doesn't have that energy.
You mentioned the external senses and the inner senses. Have you, during these months, activated what you would say called the inner senses?
I would say at first it was a strange concept for me at the beginning, to turn my senses inward. But the practice of it, again, I had the desire to know myself, and the tool was to turn my inner senses and try to understand what's happening within me. I felt over time, at least, I've become more and more successful in being able to uh, engage and understand what's happening in my body, whether it's a feeling of pressure, whether it's a smelling of rottenness, um, whether it's seeing through my eyes, like visions and colors.
I remember also you can feel like the touch sense, that you, at least in some periods, you have a strong touch sense where you can sense energies, flows, and energy distortions.
Well, certainly, you do something like a body scan at the beginning, and people have the imagination and power to attempt to do that body scan. It's almost like standing at a security gate. You're being scanned from the outside. You kind of do the same thing inward, and it's almost obvious where these blocks come and kick in. You can feel it. At least me personally, my sense was on the pressure side, the feeling of pressure, and I would see that, and I would sit with it now, focused on where it is, and be with it. To much of my surprise, over time, again, there's a sort of a dissipation in that, let's say, intensity of the blockage. And there were a couple of moments where just a flood of positive energy runs through my spine, up to my head, and basically like the whole body goes into goosebumps. Like just everything lights up. And I would at least interpret that as a sort of a washing away those energies, cleansing. You use a different word. Forgot the term. The Kundalini energy.
Yeah, some people call it Kundalini experience. That's
Okay.
when frequencies from the earth and then they go up through all the chakras along the spine and out through the head. And it's basically, yeah, flushing out, like you said. And it's boosting all the chakras. It's basically boosting your energy body to its maximum extent.
Yes, and once you come to these, once you witness those experiences, like once I come to witness these experiences, it's so powerful, so profound that, let me say, you start wanting more of it. It just becomes my new interest. I've become more and more pulled towards experiencing those high energies. It just became the new rewarding thing to me in life.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that's this attraction to higher states of awareness?
It's a very good question. I mean, the first level is there's sort of a progressive realization that, let's say, on one level, the physical level, the body level, you think you are the body. You define yourself as the body, as the physical expression of it. But there's a progressive realization that you are more than just a body. It's that you are more is what's pulling you, um, what's rewarding for me. That I am greater than just a physical body. And you dive into the mental level, and you say, "Wow, the rational mind is so powerful." I mean, it does. I mean, it's able to do thousands and thousands of computation a second. It's so profound, so powerful. No wonder scientists just love it. So then your new definition of I am the mind, and you stay in that level. But then again, at least my own experiences in life pushed me beyond that, and again got this progressive realization that, wait a second, there might be more than just a mind to myself. And in fact, the question that poses itself to me, at least, was like, what is that awareness of the activity of the mind? What is it that's aware that the mind is thinking? That sort of expansion in view was just power. It was powerful, energetic.
Yeah, I guess you can say it's like a gradual shift from who we think we are as we grow up. So we have these self-images and world view and beliefs. And as we have more of these experiences, we are shifting to identifying with our essence or our soul. And so it's this, the attraction is sort of this, who am I? And we sort of get a sense or a feel for who we are, but we understand we are even more than this. So it's like we want to find ourselves by becoming more aware and by shedding all these beliefs that we understand that they are not true. It's just illusions. So we come into this path of just wanting to shed more outdated beliefs. I want to experience. And in a way, it's shifting from the rational mind where we have all the beliefs, all the models of reality. And then in the intuitive mind, we have the experience of reality. So we are sort of moving from all these models and moving into the experience of who we are and who other people are and how the world is and who the earth is and everything. And it's like high definition compared to the models. The models we've seen through for all these years, it's always like a shaded version of, it's just a filter. It's just a model of reality. So coming into reality is like, wow, it's like Alice in Wonderland, because it's, you actually start to see the real reality. And then you want to see even more.
Yeah, I hear a lot of analogies with the Matrix and things like that. For me, it's more of the more filters that are, let's say, not just you let go of the filters, but just being aware that you have a filter with which you see the world. That filter in itself is a limitation. It has its own boundaries. It's very limited. I suppose it has to be that way for it to function, because again, the reality itself is so infinite that for my physical, mental capabilities to function in this world, I have to be able to confine and filter out many things and contain only few things. but the questioning of that filter, as in like, wait, why is it that I filter this thing and not this thing? Why am I giving something more importance than another? Why is green better than red? You start seeing the silliness of those filters, and that progression outside of those filters reveals to you the reality in its magnificence. It's so beautiful, it's so radiant. There is nothing for me that I have to do.
An interesting thing I thought about the other day is these models that we have. And like, are some of them more true than others, or are they all sort of equal? And then I was thinking, no, but they have different charges. Maybe it's like some models are more accurate, so they have more charge, or they have less charge. But then I thought that charge is mostly like how attached you are to the model. That's the only thing. So if we have just a bunch of models, like self-images, world views, and then none of them are true, and it's actually not able to sort of sort them into more true or less true. The only thing we can sort them is how attached we are to them. So we can say, oh, these we are really attached to, so we really believe them. In a way, we think they are more true, but actually we are just more attached to them. And other beliefs are more flexible, but it's just because we are less attached to them, so we can just easier shift them. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, for sure. It's very interesting. I think in certain Buddhist scriptures, they talk about the pathway of negation, where basically every filter that comes to you, you negate it. And the opposite of that is trying to find some validity to that filter. And as you said, some filters, you try to justify them as, oh, but this filter is better than the other filter. And I have experienced that. And I think I realized that certain filters have higher charges as a consequence of my attachment to them. I have a sort of a vested interest in that filter, that I want to see the world the way this filter is operating, because I have a vested interest in it. And that's maybe, I think it's a little more challenging to let go of. You use the term charge. I like that because it seems like more attracted to you. It is more challenging to let go of those filters. Some are much easier to let go of. The baggage or the weight of it is easier to let go of.
It's easy to equate those with a stronger charge of being more true, but that seems it's simply not the case. And as we move through this process of self-discovery, the models that sort of ruled our lives because we identified with them, then when the rational mind is not the main control center of our path, then we tend to use the rational mind for very lightweight models because we are not attached to them. We sort of consciously create models to be able to communicate with others, to be able to understand our own process. So as we use our inner senses, we discover something new, then we create a model for it so that we can sort of relate to and we can explain to others what we experience. So, but when we are out of these survival fear mechanisms, we create just very soft models that can easily be shifted because we don't want to end up identifying with these models again. So we just create very lightweight models.
I agree with you. You create those models because, yes, there is some practical usefulness to it in the linear world, the fiat world, but I'm no longer attached to it, and I'm ready to let it flow depending on the scenario or what happens in my life. And I would just give a message, like an analogy to that is how stubborn we can be with our models. I mean, for the longest time, Earth was agreed to be flat. This is just the worldwide consensus. It is the model that the world is flat. And the attachment to those models are very strong, whether you understood it or not. You just held to those attachments, to those programs. And to come and dare and question those models, you see how difficult it can be. It goes through a lot of, I mean, the person was had to be executed for claiming or even thinking about that the world may not be flat. And guess what? Today we know that the world is not flat. So I basically now tend to have a sort of a presumptive approach. Like, here is the model that I have today. At best, it's just a presumptive model. It's not a definitive, conclusive model. And that kind of gives me the flexibility to constantly upgrade and question my models. It gives me that flexibility, I would say.
Yeah, I find myself living in this borderland between the unknown and the known, because I understand that no model can be true. I'm just leaning into the unknown constantly, and I create new models. And as soon as I create those models, I understand that this is just a model and it can never be true. So in a way, it's like the unknown is always true, but it's not known. And then the known, the models, are never true, even though it's known.
100%.
And then from that perspective, you can look out and you see that they have built religions around models, built monetary systems and political systems and so on. But it's just, in its essence, it's just models. And humanity, we are just so used to identifying to these. So all these ideas that are underlying society, it's just ideas. They're not true. And we have come to identify with them and we make them true because we all live in the same bubble. But if you look at this with time and space, none of this is like constant. Nothing of it is true. It's just models that we manifest by identifying with them. We're going deep here today, Faisal.
Oh, fantastic. This is the stuff I enjoy. Unraveling, let's say. Yeah. I mean, let me just add one more thing. Just coming from a background of science, and I'm not talking anything negative or bad about science. Science, in fact, has had a profound influence over humanity. Profound influence over humanity. I mean, we've uplifted all of mankind like never before. The cure of diseases, the bringing a healthy, good standard of living towards all of humanity, capacity to be able to cool our houses, to heat up our water, to transport our goods. I mean, this was all as a consequence of science and the rational mind. So it is indeed powerful. But then if you look at throughout all of history, even science in itself is not final. Whatever theory, whatever model that science has came up with, again, is presumptive at best. It's conditional. It is not final in of itself. It is not a universal law that is constant and never changing. And I feel like that is where we have, at least part of us in humanity today, have the struggle to discern that science is not final. It's a model that tries to best attempt to understand the world we live in. And the more we explore, the models keep getting updated. So we need to be able to have that flexibility to update our models. But it seems in today's time, we're so rigidly fixed into whatever today's model is, and it's hard to let go of it.
Yeah. But if we go into the cells in our body and that they are shifting all the time, we are touching on these hologramness of our reality. And if we keep on rendering the same beliefs, like, oh, this is my body and I have this sickness and I have this problem and I will get old like my father and no. If we keep on rendering those, we identify with those models, those ideas, then it's like we are rendering an old, outdated version of ourselves over and over and over again. So part of what we're trying to do in momentum meditation is like free our mind. And it's like, can we find that idea that is making me sick? And can we stop believing in that so that I will be healthy? And if we go even further with that idea, if we free our minds on a larger scale in society, the only limitation we have as to how we live is the limitation of our own imagination. And that limitation is that we identify with old limiting beliefs. So let's just stop doing that and we will create a great society.
Brilliantly said. You remind me of a quote I once read that says, you are only subject to what you hold in mind. And you do sort of this affirmation that, I am an infinite being and I'm only subject to what I hold in mind. Whatever we hold in mind tends to manifest. And it's a sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yes, if you keep holding on to your old models, yes, you're going to see that self-fulfilling prophecy manifest itself and you kind of become more and more attached to these models. But then, as we said, when we have this moment of realization that we are larger than that model, then you go to the ultimate context is that I am an infinite being and I'm only subject to what I hold in mind. That immediately turns the power to ourselves to be able to grow and change rather than giving that power away from us. What you said was brilliant.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good place to finish for today. Do you have anything else you would like to say? Like if it's anyone out there thinking about joining the men's group or momentum meditations, any message you have to those like on the edge?
Oh, if you're on the edge, you're the perfect person to jump into these the sessions and workshops that you do, Sama. And anybody who has an inclination, the slightest of inclination towards exploring and knowing who they are, have the spiritual interest, and of course, with then a tons of baggage of doubt, Sama, what you offer, the platform that you have is extremely powerful and profound. And I encourage anybody to attend, start anywhere. You don't need to create a sort of a chronological map. This is the first thing I need to do or not. You could join any session and immediately feel the positivity and upliftment that we all seek. So I highly encourage people to either join the momentum meditation, men's group, Exit Fiat. Exit Fiat is fantastic. And any one of them, start somewhere.
Yeah, I have found that sometimes people feel drawn to it, but then something stops them from contacting me. And often this is like distortion or something in the energy body that do not want to be deleted. So it could be a trauma that you do not want to open, but you want to open, but you don't want to open, you see? Because when you come into any of these courses, you will open up to those traumas and look at it and everything will be fine. But sort of that defense mechanism that you built, saying, I never want to enter these traumatic areas again. They can be the things that's blocking you from working with me or working with anyone else. It's other people doing similar things and having similar platforms. So this is in no way the only place to go, but it's one option.
Agreed. And I don't totally believe in random coincidences. So if people are withdrawn to you, they will find your work and hear about your work or have read your work. And I would say that's basically your future pulling you. I mean, we are not pushed and propelled by our past, but instead we are pulled by our future. So I really thank you, Sama, for all the work you've done and the platform that you have out there for people to come to find themselves and grow in a very meaningful way. Thanks a lot, Sama. Thanks a lot for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you. And to be honest, I feel that because I do not create these courses with my rational mind, it's almost as if we're sort of creating them together, and I'm sort of the vessel that is setting it up. But it's like a course, when a course happens, and often people feel that they were meant to be there. And I always feel that I was meant to be there. So it's almost, if we think non-linear, that it's like a group of souls coming together, and then we come together here on earth, if that makes sense.
We're all meant to be together.
So thank you again, Faisal, for your time and coming on today. And see you soon.
It was my pleasure. Goodbye.